Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the short but impactful career of Springbok FC Smit. FC, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we begin our conversation, let's take a look at today's trivia question. In 2014, Heineke Meyer lost an end-of-year test match for the first time. Name the team that ended the winning streak. Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below, and we'll also find out if FCA knows the answer, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. FCA, I would like to begin in 1992, at the start of that year. How likely did you think it was that you were going to get a Springbok test cap that year?
Yeah, I think it was quite an interesting year. If I can remember correctly, we started with quite a week of playing some trials in Pretoria. And we were supposed to go, or the Springboks were supposed to go on a tour somewhere in Europe, which never materialized. I think it was, I don't want to say Georgia or one of those places. I was actually quite chuffed during the pre-trials. I ended up being in the A team the whole time. So I was actually, I wasn't punted as one of the front runners, but I came out quite well, and I thought I might be in with a chance.
And then, as you know, we played against New Zealand, Australia. We went to Europe and played 2 tests against France before finishing off against England. You missed out on those first 4 test matches of the year. How disappointing was that for you?
No, it was actually quite disappointing. I don't know, there was some underlying issues that were around. So I think when they announced the team in September, I think around mid-September somewhere, and I wasn't in the team, must say I was quite disappointed. I went to play in France, played for a club called St. Claude, and I was playing my rugby over there. So it was good fun and really enjoyed it. I went to watch a couple of those Springboks games, so I was definitely in there and met up with some teammates.
It's very interesting indeed. So tell us, how were you feeling when you found out that you were going to start against England in that test match at Twickenham?
Well, I think maybe the first is to start where I got the call up. I got received at the rugby club in St. Claude in their little restaurant, bar, bistro. I got a call to say that I have been selected, and it was SABC that phoned me, so it was quite a surprise and a massive. And I was supposed to join up with them in Lille in France. So that was a great start. I played the first game against the Barbarians then, and there was basically 2 groups in a little group of 30 that we were in, and I was pulled into, if I can call it, the first. And I played against the Barbarians, which was great. Playing in France, which wasn't a great outcome. A lot of underlying factors with the team that we played against, Serge Blanco and so forth. And then we went on to tour in Britain, and so I was. It was exciting. Everything went past in a second. So. To remember what really happened and how the moment was just so big, playing at Twickenham, playing international against England was just amazing.
I'm going to see if you can remember a little bit more about that day at Twickenham. I had Tim Glulani on the show a while back, and he only played 10 minutes for the Springboks. That is the entirety of his Springbok career. But something that was very interesting, he told me that on the day of the match, while the players were doing their warm-ups and their pre-match drills, he actually turned up late for that sort of thing because everything in the day was just a blur and there was a lot of confusion, and obviously amidst all the excitement. How do you remember the pre-match activities?
Look, I think ours were quite strange. There was no, there was no anthem, so it was definitely difficult, and it was not difficult in the sense that but it was exciting, an underlying way that you didn't understand exactly how the day would progress and what it would. But we were a great team together. We've been touring then for a couple of weeks together. The roommates were great. I shared rooms with Tian Strauss and being a great friend of mine. So we had, it actually, I didn't find it difficult to keep my wits that day.
And speaking of which, I actually had Tian Strauss on the show a few months ago as well. What a wonderful Springbok he was as well. FC, let's talk about that. The match specifically. At halftime, we were leading against England. We were actually doing very, very well. And then in the second half, we actually got blown away a little bit. What happened?
Yeah, I think if we have to think back to really talk about it, I can't really remember anything. Just because it was, everything went by in a second. I think we had some chances that we missed. For us, it was, I don't want to call it unforgiving, but it was, England were playing for how long at Twickenham. We arrived. We haven't played really international rugby at that time, being only then the fifth test or sixth test that we played. And I think Nas was brilliant. The most amazing drop goal that he scored, doing a 360 and then putting it through. Mistakes from our side. It's just everything happened so quickly, and I can't remember really why. Although I thought we didn't use our chances that we had.
It's also interesting, FC, I've had quite a lot of the 1992 Springboks on this show, and a lot of them have told me that tour was actually quite a difficult tour. And usually they speak specifically about the French leg of the tour. And I know, as you mentioned, you weren't there initially, and then you only came into the picture quite late on. So you were there in France, but mostly in Britain. I would be interested to hear, would you agree that it was a difficult tour?
Oh, no, for sure. I think if I can... The French side was definitely difficult. For me, it was a bit easier because I already spent quite a bit of time in France before the match that I played against the Barbarians. So the French are difficult. They are amazing, competitive, passionate, emotional players. And then I think what made it difficult is I don't think we were exposed to the outside world before, for saying, because we didn't play rugby, and suddenly we get to play in France, which supported us coming back into international rugby, but they were there to win the series. Definitely they did everything on their time. I can remember after the Barbarian game that we controversially lost, they just didn't pitch for they were an hour and a half late for the formal function, and when they arrived, management decided, okay, that's us, we leave. So we left without having a meal. I can remember we got back to the team room at the hotel, and we had McDonald's. So we missed out on the foie gras, and we had McDonald's burgers. So definitely not easy.
It's very interesting, and obviously a very different time as well. Something else that I'm interested to hear from you, FC, I've heard also from the guys that were on that tour that there was a bit of a divide in the camp, and we called it provincialism at the time. These days it's not really a thing anymore. But the idea that the Northern Transvaal guys stuck together, the Western Province guys would only hang out among themselves. What can you tell us about that?
No, I don't agree with that. We did a lot of traveling on the bus, and I was in the back of the bus, and in our James Small, everyone of different provinces, yes, we were together, although, guys stick together. Adolf Malan, we just thinking about the guys that were around us and around my group, we were great. There was definitely no provincialism, although I think I think it took years to get away from that. But I can't say that I could put a finger on what or where or when, because for me it was just this most amazing opportunity and dream that I was fortunate to live.
It's interesting how different people remember things differently because, like you mentioned earlier, the foie gras and that sort of thing. Some of the guys that have been on the show said that they didn't like that kind of food at all. And then I remember I had Keith Andrews on the show and he said he loved it. So it's just interesting how different guys experienced it. Let's talk a little bit about you at the time, FCA. If I have got this right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were 27 years old. And as it turns out, that was your only test match for the Springboks. But we can certainly say that you were young enough to have been able to go all the way to the 1995 Rugby World Cup. What actually happened?
Well, firstly, we weren't professional in those days. I played for the club that I played. I played my first game, and on Monday, the president called me and said he'd like to have coffee with me, and they asked me, they would like me to stay after my first game. They would like me to stay for another season after this one. Which I agreed to. And then the test happened, or the call up to the box happened. And for me, it was I gave my word to the club that I would play for them for a year, and I didn't want to go back. Looking back, maybe I should have come back to. I was Ronnie Masson, the president then of Western Province, when I came back in June, July. For the break, he asked me, please come and join, please come back. We'd like to have you back in the team. And I said, I would love to, but, I can't, I've given my undertaking to the club, and I stayed, thinking back, then in those years, coming back in 94, Kitch was starting to come through. I played for the junior box at Ellis Park, and I was definitely pushed out in all the calls or whatever that definitely didn't get the game time. I can't blame it. It's just what I can remember, and I didn't make the side. Very sad. I would love to have toured, But that's a decision that you make in life, and and sadly I didn't play more. I was hoping that I would play because I was always in the front runners, then the north, south, and played in a number of games, junior box, and so I was always in the mix. Sadly that's what it is. At least I've got the jacket. Got something to show.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? It's my dream, guys, to do this full time, and with a small financial contribution, you can help me realize that dream. The link and the QR code is appearing on your screen right now, and I'll also put it down in the description area for you to go and click on at a later stage if you would like to do so. And by becoming a patron, I promise there will be great benefits for members. Now let's get back to the interview. I got to ask you, do you regret not having had the opportunity to play professional rugby?
I think the guys today are immensely dedicated, and they've got a career. Although I don't think they get paid enough for what they go through and what they do. They should earn multiple times more than like any other international sports. But I think I had the opportunity to still have a career. It was very tough. Used to go to the gym, be in the gym at 5:30 in the morning, be at the work at 8 o'clock, and then leave 3:30 to go for a practice in the afternoon. So on average, I used to spend 52, 53 hours a week on rugby and fit in a full job, which are quite fortunate to be able to have done both of them. But I think we had a great time. I wouldn't. Yes, I would have made some different choices about my playing career and style and whatever you like to think about. But very fortunate, I wouldn't change my year for any year.
In your case, you played just the one test match for the Springboks. Many kids in South Africa grow up dreaming of playing for the Boks, and I think that they think that if they make it, they're going to play for 5 years, for 10 years. They're going to play 100 test matches like Victor Matfield did. But in your case, just the one. What would your advice be to those youngsters?
I think the most important thing is you've got to have the will. You've got to. if I can use myself as an example, I ended up Craven Week playing for Western Province B, so I didn't get to Craven Week. Exactly the same happened for the under-19 Craven Week. And I always just had the will and the passion to make it work. I worked very hard at it. I trained hard. I believed in myself immensely. And you just got to make sure that you train hard, believe in yourself, and set yourself firm objectives and goals that you work towards, and let nobody tell you can't make it.
And as you say, in those days, obviously an amateur, and you described to us going to the gym, then you go to work, and then you go to practice, and that's what it was like for rugby players in those days. Tell us a little bit about your post-rugby career.
I got injured. I had a little knee injury, and every time they had to clean up the ligaments and stuff, and every time I was just ready to get back onto the field, my knee popped and I got water on it, and I was told, don't worry, keep playing, we'll do a reconstruction or knee replacement when you're 45, 50. And then I actually had a great job, and I thought, I think I had enough. I've got to concentrate. Maybe it's a sign for me to play, and the play that I've got to do is put it into my career. And I worked for a wonderful company called Grace Security Services that was later sold. Went on to start my own security company a couple of years later, 10-ish years later, had that for 18 years, and I sold that to a private equity company a couple of years back. And now I'm involved in a couple of different entrepreneurial businesses.
I also know that you've been involved with the Players Fund. Tell us a bit about that.
A great opportunity. I joined them, I think around about 1990, as a youngster, as a player, under the guidance of amazing guys, being Mornay, Duplessis, Frikkie Nordia, H.O. de Villiers, Tabby Tubers, Mike Mainkies. I can keep rambling on, and the passion for really looking after the game, making the game safer, and getting our unions and especially the main rugby board in South Africa behind us was a great thing. And we've got some amazing educational programs that we run, and I think we've done immense work with the funds that were never around. And now, hopefully, we're getting to a phase where we can really add value and make the game safer. And that's what it's all about. I think these new rules are what we see now in Varsity Cup about tackling heights, and it's all with input from our medical side that we've got, and hopefully we can make it safer and make it more enjoyable for everyone.
I think that's what we all want. So tell me, FC, who was your toughest opponent?
And I always used to say, I think I would judge myself the toughest opponent, but I had amazing players that I played against, and I wouldn't like to single out, but the real great players that I played, I thought Niels Butter was an amazing player, playing with Fafa Knutse, playing with Dani Gerber, Michael Duplessis. I was fortunate to be a youngster with him. He helped me a lot. So there's Tian Stoffberg, Henny Becker, Divan Serfontein, there's and more in the coaching role, Alan Zondag, guys that really had passion for the game and really brought that forward. I think that's actually the guys that I would like to salute, because they actually add value, and I think every game there's a great player and a tough opponent, and I always try to focus on my game, forget who I'm playing against, and I just have small Tian Strauss, Joel. We can keep talking, the guys that really done fantastically. and guys that we never used to think about and that we played with. A guy, Laurent Caban, he played with us in Western Province. Fabian Gaultier, Robert Jones, guys that actually played in Western Province with us. Amazing. So, some amazing players out there.
You've mentioned some real legends of the game there. A lot of those guys I grew up watching as well. Caban, for example, what a wonderful player he was. So legends from those days. Maybe we talk a little bit about legends from these days. Is there a particular player that you admire today, FCA?
I think we can always take a cue from what Rassie was saying, how he talked about Mapimpi, and you look at our wingers. I had dinner the other night with Alan Zondag, and we talked about how the Colbys and the small wings or whatever came through, and what make them real players. Besides the real guys that, and I'm not saying real guys, for those guys to actually have bridged the gap from small players to being in a position today that we can't think about a team without them in. That is absolutely amazing. And then I think we've just got to salute the whole attitude of the team. And I think the most important that I don't think we talk about, you don't get a winning team if it's not a happy team, and that's what we have. We've got a family, and hopefully, it can catch on to the other unions, and they could work on it to get them into that position where they're a great unit.
Is there a particularly funny moment that you can share with us from your time with the Springboks?
Yeah, I think we had a couple of beers just arriving in London, and we were staying somewhere close to Twickenham, although not in Twickenham, and we decided because we had a bus trip and all of this to get there from Lille, which was quite a bit of a travel. So we ended up in a little bar to have a beer, and it wasn't. We may be there after the first beer. 5 ladies came to us and they approached us, and the first thing that we saw, they were drinking pints as we were drinking, not half a pint like a lady should be drinking, or we like to think that way. And they were actually the English women's side, and the only thing that they want to talk to us about scrum techniques, about how do you scrum, what do you do here, because they caught on we were in some team gear and stuff. So they recognize us. So for me, that was funny. It's the first time ever being exposed to ladies that really want to go into technique of what do you do as a second row here, and what do the tight head do in this situation. I still have a giggle about that every time thinking about that.
Great story indeed. All right, we're going to finish off by looking again at that trivia question. In 2014, Heineke Meyer lost an end-of-year test match for the first time. Name the team that ended the winning streak. Do you know the answer, FCA?
No, I'm not going to try.
All right, I'll give it to you. The correct answer is Ireland. So in 2012 and 2013, Heineke Meyer took the Springboks on the end-of-year tour, 3 test matches each time, and we won all 3. So he'd won 6 in a row, and then finally Ireland brought an end to that end-of-year record.
What a great team, what they've done together. And I think there's a lot of South Africans in Ireland, and I think the input we had in the Northern Hemisphere from the Southern Hemisphere, players, coaches, I think, and their style and their play and their passion really did wonders for their rugby.
Absolutely. FC, let me say it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today, an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Thank you a lot, Peter. Thanks a lot.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, I had another former Springbok flank on the show, Warren Brosnihan. You can go and watch that video. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time, I'll have Vadner Swanepoel here.